Welcome to the Man of Recaps. This is Man in the High Castle, Season 1. It's 1960s America in the alternate universe where the Nazis won World War II, which, sucks. Joe Blake is a young guy ready to join the resistance. They give him a mission to transport something important over to Cannon City in the neutral zone. See, most of America is occupied by the Nazis, but the Japanese got to keep California, and there's a small neutral zone in the middle. But the Nazis arrive, they shoot the place up, and Joe Blake makes it out of there just in time. Over in Japanese San Francisco, everything's Asian, so it's not that different. Meet Juliana Crane. She's a nice young woman, taking Aikido classes, got a nice boyfriend Frank, and a best friend third wheel Ed. Her sister Trudy shows up. It's like, Trudy, where you been? It's like, hey, I got this cool new job. Turns out that job, she's in the resistance, and she's like, they're on to me, take this, and she runs off, and oh no, she's shot dead. Wow, ouch. What did Trudy have that was so important? It's just a film that shows the Allies winning the war. What? How is this possible? Frank's like, yo, I've heard about the Man in the High Castle. He makes these fake propaganda films. You gotta turn this over to the authorities. But Trudy had a bus ticket to the neutral zone, and Juliana's like, no, I'm gonna finish my sister's mission. Obviously, though, they're searching for the missing sister of the rebel they just shot, so sucks to be Frank. On the bus, Juliana meets a nice woman who steals all her stuff. Luckily, though, she had the film hidden, it's safe, and she makes it to the neutral zone. She goes to the diner where she's supposed to meet her contact, but nobody shows up, and she's like, hey, this is awkward, but I had my bag stolen, I can't pay for this. Luckily, Joe Blake is there. He's like, I got you, baby girl. He buys her an orange soda, and these two bond very quickly, although they don't share that they're in the resistance yet. And turns out that Joe is undercover working for the Nazis. Oh, big twist, episode 1. The guy Joe's reporting to is Obergruppenführer John Smith. There's that word for you. It's a mouthful, but it's kind of fun to say. He's the head of the SS for all America, but John Smith, yeah, he's not a German overlord, he's American. After America lost the war, he committed fully to being a Nazi. He's raising his nice American Nazi family, but he's not afraid to torture people to death. The resistance tries to assassinate him, but he takes them out. Obergruppenführer John Smith is hard to perish. Now, Juliana finds a job opening at the diner. She talks to the owner, Lem Washington, who gives her the waitress gig. Her resistance contact is supposed to meet her here at 12:05, and around that time, this nice old man who makes origami figures and reads the Bible is like, hey, what's up? You should check out chapter 12, verse 5. Oh, I see, you're my contact. Joe checks him out because he's hunting the resistance, but turns out this guy's an undercover Nazi too. So when Juliana gives him the film, he tries to kill her, and Joe comes to save her because she's hot, but Juliana doesn't need saving. She's a black belt in Aikido. Oh, off the bridge, ouch. Meanwhile, Frank is hanging out with the Japanese secret police, the Kempei Tai. Chief Inspector Takeshi Kido is like, hey, tell us about Juliana, and we found out your grandfather was Jewish, and even though the Japanese don't really care, they're allowed to gas them for no reason, including Frank's sister and her kids, and Frank's like, no, I won't betray Juliana, so they're gonna shoot him. But just then, they pick up the woman who stole Juliana's bag, which was actually Trudy's bag, and she had a subversive film of her own, though it's not a Man in the High Castle one, so they don't kill Frank. Looks like Juliana's innocent, you're free to go. He's like, well, that's great. Where's my sister? Oh, it's a little too late for that. We already gassed her. Oh man, so if Frank wasn't a rebel before, he sure is now. Over in the neutral zone, it's the scientist from Pacific Rim dressed as a cowboy. He's like, hey boy, give me your papers. Joe's like, what is the neutral zone? I don't need to give you my papers. It's like, yeah, actually you do. They call him the Marshal. He's a bounty hunter, hunting down people who have fled to the neutral zone and likes to string them up for fun. He was supposed to meet the undercover Nazi they just killed, so before long he's onto them. They have a shootout, but they knock him out for now. Turns out diner owner Lem Washington is the resistance contact here. Juliana's like, hey, I got the film, let's go to the Man in the High Castle. But he's like, no, that's not how it works, missy. You give us the film, we go to the Man in the High Castle. Also, your boyfriend Joe's a Nazi spy. Joe's like, what? Me? No way. Would a Nazi spy have brought you my film too? And it's like, okay, we believe you for now. They fake a car accident to get the Marshal off their tail, and Juliana and Joe go their separate ways. Now, the Germans and the Japanese are ostensibly allies, but old man Hitler's getting pretty old, and everyone knows his successor is gonna want to war Japan. So the Japanese trade minister Tagomi meets with the Swedish diplomat, but turns out he's really a high-ranking Nazi here in secret, because these two men are working together to ensure peace between their nations. The big problem is that the Nazis have atomic bombs, and Japan never figured it out. So Colonel Wagner is here with some microfilm that shows them how to make one, so that way they can have a nice Cold War. The Crown Prince of Japan is coming to San Francisco. During his speech, he's gonna slip the microfilm into the science minister's pocket, but meanwhile, Frank works in a replica gun factory, and today he made a real gun. He wants to assassinate the prince as revenge for his sister, but he can't make bullets, so he goes to see antique dealer Robert Childen. For a fat stack of cash, he's willing to sell him some for decoration only. So Frank's gonna go through with it, but he sees this little kid in the crowd, and he's like, oh, he's so cute, I can't shoot a guy in front of him. But boom, the crown prince is shot anyway, what? Frank didn't do it, but he looks extremely guilty, so he pieces out before anyone finds him, and the microfilm handoff is ruined. They're patting everyone down, so he's gotta swallow it. Right after this, Juliana comes home. She goes to the Kempeitai like, hey, sorry you were looking for me, I was just on a camping trip, no resistance stuff. And the chief inspector's got too much on his plate right now to deal with her, so Juliana immediately gets in touch with the resistance. They set her up with a job at Trade Minister Tagomi's office, serving water and tea and stuff. She and the trade minister actually become friends because they're both good people. But Juliana finds that every phone in the country is tapped, and one of the guys running that is her stepdad. What? He's like, yo, I'm a nice guy, I'm just, trying to provide for my family. Back in New York, Joe Blake makes his report, but he leaves Juliana out of it because he's kind of got a crush on her. He goes to John Smith's house for Victory America Day. They go to the airport to pick up his mother-in-law, but instead they find Colonel Wagner, who turns out he and John Smith go way back. He managed to pass the microfilm after he passed the microfilm, and he made it to New York, but his flight to Berlin is delayed. So he comes over for the VA Day bratwurst, but at the end of the night, oh, it was a setup. They knew he was doing something traitorous. Sorry, old friend. And Joe Blake saw a conspicuous file labeled Grasshopper, which is what all the High Castle films have written on them. He decides to scope it out, but it's blank. Oh, it was a double setup. John Smith's whole party was just to catch traitors. He's like, okay, Joe, I know you're not a real traitor. You just met a hot resistance girl and fell in love, but you're gonna go to San Francisco, get a new film, and then kill her, or you're a dead man. So Joe goes to San Francisco. Juliana introduces him to the resistance, and they were gonna get a new film, but it was intercepted already by the Yakuza, who are ransoming it for like 100,000 yen. Meanwhile, the Kempeitai are searching for the prince's shooter. It's only a matter of time before they pin it on Frank. So he's like, hey, Jules, we gotta get out of here. He doesn't have any money though, so he goes to Robert Childen with a plan. They're gonna forge Sitting Bull's necklace, which turns out Frank's really good at, and sell it to Japanese collectors for a buttload of money. So they're gonna flee to the neutral zone, but they have a goodbye dinner with their parents, where her stepdad's like, hey, it's a good thing you're here tonight. The Kempeitai know all about a resistance Yakuza deal for a film going on. So she rushes down there and warns Joe Blake just in time to escape before the Kempeitai bust in, but they're picked up by the Yakuza anyway, and Frank is left waiting at the bus stop. Sucks to be Frank. The Yakuza's gonna keep the film unless they buy it again, and the resistance only has enough money to ransom Juliana. Poor Joe has to stay put. So Juliana goes to Frank like, hey boyfriend, that money you made for our escape, I need it to ransom the hot guy that I have a lot of sexual tension with. He's like, yo, are you serious? But he's a nice guy, so he does it. On the way out, Joe sees that Frank brought his gun, so he grabs it and shoots up the Yakuza. He's like, I'm not leaving here without that film. And it's like, bro, you gotta let me know next time you're gonna do something like that. Joe gives them the film for safekeeping. They'll meet up later, and while they wait, they watch it, but this one's not happy. It shows a nuclear bomb destroying San Francisco, and resistance members being executed, including Frank, and the shooter is Nazi Joe Blake. So Joe shows up like, hey, why you looking at me like that? And it's like, you kill me, you Nazi bastard! Juliana's like, say it ain't so, Joe, but he doesn't say it ain't so, and he takes the film. Meanwhile, Obergruppenführer John Smith is having a bad day. His son's got a doctor's appointment. Turns out he's got a slow progressing incurable genetic disease, and in the Reich, people with incurable diseases are put down. Since he's a family friend, the doctor's like, I won't report it yet, I'll let you do it yourself at home. To make a bad day worse, his boss from Berlin shows up, Reinhard Heydrich, and as far as Nazis go, he's one of the worst. John Smith thinks it's weird that his assistant knows exactly how Heydrich takes his coffee, so he puts it together that the assassination attempt on his life was Heydrich wanting him out of the way. He's like, I don't know, when your boss's boss tells you to kill your boss, you do it. It's like, yeah, not if your boss is me. Boom, pushed off the roof. Anyway, Heydrich is in town to take custody of Colonel Wagner. See, he's on the short list of people allowed to see Hitler, and Heydrich wants him to assassinate Hitler, or he's gonna murder his whole family. Over in San Francisco, the Yakuza tell the Kempeitai that the real shooter was a German secret agent. He's ready to confess, but boom, they shoot him in the head, and it's like, look, we gotta cover this up, because they want us to provoke war, but we can't win a war right now. But saving the Empire comes at great personal cost, because without a suspect, he's got a seppuku. But just in time, there's a break in the case. Ed got caught disposing of Frank's gun, and to cover for his friend, he confesses to shooting the prince. Frank runs down there, no, it was me! But they've got a nice confession, so the case is closed. Heydrich takes John Smith on a mandatory hunting trip. He's like, hey, I'm doing a coup, killing Hitler. Are you with me, or are you dead? Over in Austria, there's a coincidental high castle. Wagner's about to kill Hitler, but Hitler's like, yo, I know all about the plan, and if you kill me, they're gonna war Japan immediately. You want that? So Wagner's like, ah, no, boom, shoots himself. Then Hitler calls Reinhardt, yo, I'm still alive, and John Smith grabs a gun and shoots him. He's like, sup, mein Führer. In San Francisco, they explain what happened to the resistance, and it's like, like, look, you gotta lure Joe back here. We're gonna take the film and kill him. So when Juliana shows up, she's like, I can't believe you're a Nazi. He's like, look, I'm not a Nazi. I'm just a dude who lives in New York, and if I don't bring this film back to them, they're gonna kill me. So Juliana's like, hey, I'll help you escape, but she's really bringing him to the resistance to kill him. But then she feels bad. She's like, Joe, I believe in you, and she puts him on the boat to Mexico. Oh, the resistance is pissed. Now, Trade Minister Tagomi's wife and son died in the war. Leaves from the vine, falling so slow. So he sits on a park bench like, man, this world sucks. So he starts to meditate, and when he opens his eyes, what? He's in America? Yeah, he meditated himself to an alternate reality, and that's how season 1 comes to an end. Obergruppenführer. I'm just gonna say John Smith.